Hey guys, welcome to Poxega. How you doing you all? In this video we are going to see, part 1 of, What If Ash and Cynthia Were Couple? And please do check out story named, Lost Friendships by Darkness 65. And make sure to leave a like, share and subscribe. Let's get into the video. It was early in the morning and the sun was rising over the horizon lighting the vast forest at the foot of the mountains. On top of one of those mountains stood a young man looking out into the forest. That young man's name was Ash Ketchum, the aspiring Pokemon trainer with dream of becoming Pokemon Master someday. Well, it used to be his dream. Suddenly a Pokemon jumps out of a nearby bush and attacks him, but something stops the Pokemon midway and pushes him back. The Pokemon asks, "How long were you aware?" "Ever since you got here. You really should practice on concealing your aura, Lucario." "I will work on it, Master," he said. Ash rolled his eyes, for he had told Lucario thousands of times to stop calling him Master. In Ash's mind, him and his Pokemon were equal. They were the only ones he could trust, and they only trusted him, this being a result of something that happened many years ago. Of course Ash could understand all of his Pokemon due to his strong bond with them and the mastery of his aura. "Someday you'll have to teach me that aura shield technique," said Lucario. "Of course my friend," said Ash. Just then a small yellow mouse came running at an amazing speed. "You almost had him, Lucario. Maybe next time," said Pikachu. Lucario turned to Pikachu and nodded. Pikachu then hopped onto Ash's shoulder and asked, "We saw you, Ash. What's on your mind?" asked Pikachu. "Nothing, just thinking," he said. "About that day," Lucario snarled as he said this. Ash remembered that day like it was yesterday. Flashback. Ash had just won the Sinnoh Conference and had been presented with his trophy. He had challenged the Elite Four and won. Now there was only one person standing in the way of him becoming Sinnoh champion. He had trained for weeks for this battle. This was his chance to become a champion and be one step closer to becoming a Pokemon Master. One day Ash was training when he suddenly saw smoke rising from a building off in the distance. He gathered his Pokemon and ran to see what was going on. When he arrived, he noticed the building was the one where Cynthia kept her Pokemon. It was sort of a daycare nursery. The firefighter Pokemon were already there putting out the fire. After a while the fire was out and all the Pokemon were safe. He tried to find Cynthia to ask her what had happened, but he didn't find her, so he decided to walk back to the Pokemon Center. When he walked in, he saw Cynthia and all his friends glaring at him. He asked what was going on. Hitches when Cynthia stepped forward and said, "How could you? You tried to injure my Pokemon before our battle." Ash was shocked. He didn't know what she was talking about. He tried to explain that he was nowhere near the building when the fire broke out. Cynthia said there were eyewitnesses that saw him running away from the building when the fire started. She then ran out of the Pokemon Center crying. Officer Jenny was there to question Ash on his whereabouts. Ash said he was training and said his friends knew he went off to train for the match, but they said that he could have been doing anything. Everyone said that he would do anything to win. They talked about him like they didn't know him at all. He was being betrayed by all his friends, the people he had helped and saved countless times. They didn't believe him when he told them he had nothing to do with it. They even confessed against him, saying that they had heard him plan it all out. Ash was banned from ever competing in any league and was stripped of his trainer's license. When he returned home, he learned that his mother had passed away in a car accident. Ash had nothing and no one else to turn to, so he decided to leaving every trace of his old life to start a new one. At night he took all the Pokemon he had befriended throughout the years and left. Present time. "Yay, it's been 6 years and I still can't get that memory out of my mind," said Ash. "It will eventually go away, Master, just give it time," said Lucario. "Thank you my friend, I appreciate your concern. Come on guys, let's head back. The others might be wondering where we are," said Ash. Pikachu and Lucario all headed back to the place they now called home. It was a small cave a little bit down from the top of the mountain. He loved his new home. It was peaceful up in the mountain. Sure, it took some time to get used to living up there, but after a while he found it was a good place to train his Pokemon and master his aura abilities. Ash had trained his Pokemon to absolute perfection, but he felt that it was selfish if his Pokemon were the only ones who trained. Therefore he occasionally sparred with his Pokemon. He thought if his Pokemon had to train hard and be pushed to their limits, so should he. They were arriving home when a loud roar was heard. Ash looked up to see a giant orange dragon fly down and land next to him. "Hey Charizard, how'd you sleep?" asked Ash. Charizard grunted and smiled at Ash. "Fine," he said. "Subtle as ever, huh?" said Ash. Charizard responded by sending a weak flamethrower at Ash, a habit and sign of friendship they've had for a long time. When Ash got to the cave, all his Pokémon were there waiting for him, like every morning, waiting for Ash to tell them what kind of training they would be doing. Ash stopped and looked at all of his Pokémon. He was proud of every one of his Pokémon. They were his friends, they were his family. Ash had many Pokémon, all which had evolved into their final form except for Pikachu of Sea. But Pikachu had been considering it, but Ash always told all his Pokémon it was their choice, he would not force them to do anything they did not want to. To name a few of Ash's Pokémon, there was Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise, Feraligatr, Meganium, and Typhlosion, Infernape, Torterra, Sceptile, Swellow, Staraptor, Garchomp, Heracross, a red Drapion, Pidgeotto, a white Salamence, his black Lucario, and Pikachu, of course. But these were not all of Ash's Pokémon, and of course Ash had encountered many legendary Pokémon throughout his travels, some of which were part of his team. He let them roam free, but when he needed them they did not hesitate in coming back to him, for Ash had also forged a strong bond with them and they considered themselves his Pokémon and his protectors, even if the young man could take care of himself. Ash snapped away from his thoughts and told them to take the day off, telling them he had to go contemplate a decision he was trying to make. Everyone looked at Ash confused, wondering what he had on his mind, but all eventually went their own way to find breakfast. Since they fed on the plant and animal life that grew and lived on the mountain, Ash had discovered it was better for his Pokémon to eat fresh food rather than processed food. While everyone went their way, Ash went over to a nearby waterfall and sat on a stone in the middle of the lake under the waterfall. This was the place he went to meditate when something complicated was on his mind. Ash sat down on the rock while Lucario came and joined him. They always meditated together, and it's where Lucario first taught Ash how to concentrate to improve his aura abilities. "So Master, do you really believe it's finally time?" asked Lucario. "Reading my thoughts again, my friend," said Ash. "My apologies Master, I didn't mean to. I was joking Lucario, I would never keep secrets from you guys, I know you are concerned, but yes, I've been thinking and I think it is finally time to return. I also received an invitation from Scott for a tournament," said Ash. "But Master, I thought they had banned you from any competition and revoked your license," said Lucario. Ash remembered the day and felt anger inside. He suddenly became surrounded in a black aura. Lucario saw this and tried to calm down Ash. He knew that when Ash released his dark aura he was dangerous. Ash then calmed down and stared down at Lucario. "Master G, that forgive me," said Lucario. "Don't blame yourself Lucario, it's not your fault. Thank you for calming me down, I appreciate it." "Anytime Master," said Lucario. "Thank you, and about what you asked. I was cleared 2 years ago, but by then I had no interest in going back to all the people that betrayed me. 2 years ago during the Sinnoh conference, Paul had admitted to Max that he had med Ash all that time ago because he hated Ash. Realizing that he had betrayed his best friend, he felt horrible. He lost the match he had against Paul the next day, but Max told authorities and then went to Cynthia to tell her the truth. After a long and grueling interrogation, he admitted to framing Ash. After that, Ash was cleared of all charges and his trainer's license was reinstated. Everyone looked for Ash for months, but no one found him. He was gone, and in Ash's opinion he wanted to stay gone. Meanwhile, Max, will you stop bragging already? I don't tell you to stop bragging when you win a contest, May, so just leave me alone. Okay, you two, how about both of you stop? It's getting late and we need to set up camp and start dinner, said Brock. Finally, said a redhead in blue net. Dawn, Misty, can you please go get firewood so I can make dinner? May and Max, can you go find some berries for dessert please? Asked Brock. All right, everyone said. All of them had known each other for a long time and were now traveling together. First there was Misty, the Cerulean City Gym leader and water Pokemon trainer. Then there was Brock, the ex-Pewter City Gym leader. May and Max Maple. May was an Aspie Ring coordinator from Hoenn. Max was a trainer who one day hoped to take over his father's gym. Finally there's Dawn. She was also a coordinator but was from the Sinnoh region. All these people had one In common they all knew and had once traveled with a young Pokemon trainer years ago, and all of them had made a big mistake and each one of them knew it. Everyone was sitting down for dinner when Max started talking about the Pokemon battle he had won earlier that day. While he was retelling everyone about it, the girls started talking. "You know, his energy kind of reminds me of Ash," said May. As soon as she said this, everyone grew quiet and looked at her, then they lowered their heads, remembering the long-lost friend they had betrayed. Ever since that day none of them would speak his name. Because every time they did they felt the guilt all over again. "Alright guys, we still got a long way to go to get to the tournament, we don't want Max to be late," said Brock. Meanwhile on another part of the world, a blonde woman stood at the edge of a lake as if waiting for someone. Suddenly a large dragon came flying down and landed right in front of her. This woman was the champion of Cynthia. "Did you find anything, Garchomp?" said Cynthia. Cynthia's Garchomp looked down at the ground and shook his head. As soon as she saw this, a tear slid down her face. She had been looking for such a long time and yet she had found nothing. Garchomp knew what this meant to her, so he placed his claw on his shoulder in a way of telling her they would keep looking. She looked up and smiled at him. Before she left, she looked up at the sky and said, "Ash, where are you?" Ash had woken up early the next day. He was giving one final thought on his decision. He knew his Pokemon were more than ready. In his eyes they were perfect, but the thing he could not get through his head was what he would do when he saw them again. Just thinking about them was filling him with rage. "Morning Ash, how'd you sleep?" asked Pikachu. "A bit restless but okay overall," answered Ash. "Restless? Why?" asked Pikachu. "I'll explain when everyone wakes up." A few hours later, every one of Ash's Pokemon stood by the mouth of the cave waiting for Ash, who told them to gather up after their morning training. Ash's Pokemon were whispering to each other, wondering why Ash had called a meeting. "Do you know what it's about?" one of them asked another. "No, I'm just as puzzled as you," another one answered. Finally Ash came out of the cave and everyone became silent, waiting for what their trainer, master, and friend was going to tell them. "Everyone, I've called all of you here to ask for your help and opinion in a decision I've been trying to make." At this all the Pokemon roared in agreement. They would do anything for Ash, and the fact that he was asking for their opinion meant this was very important. "After some time thinking, I've decided that it's time to return, but of course I want your opinion if any of you don't want to come. I understand you are my best friends and family and you always will be, no matter what. If you disapprove, just tell me." Lucario stepped up to Ash and said, "Master, I think I speak for everyone when I say that we consider you family as well and we are with you through thick and thin." Everyone exclaimed in agreement and then asked, "So where are we going?" Ash smiled and said, "First we're going back home. After that a tournament." After he said that, everyone grinned and cheered. They were finally going to battle other Pokemon, and for Ash it was his chance to show everyone that they had made a great mistake. The next day Ash and all his Pokemon were up early and ready to go. They were going to stop by Pallet Town first. "All right everyone, it's time to go. We'll come back someday." Shish returned everyone to their Pokeball except for Lucario, Pikachu and Charizard. Lucario stayed out of his Pokeball like Pikachu. It was Lucario's choice, but Ash didn't mind, plus he could always talk to Lucario and Pikachu anytime that way. The three of them hopped onto Charizard and took off, leaving the place they had called home for a long time. A few hours later they were flying over Pallet Town. Looking down, Ash saw that the town had changed but somehow kept its quiet and serene atmosphere. There were many more houses and stores, but other than that not much had changed. Ash had told Charizard to go to his mother's house, hoping that it was still there, and then he saw it, his old home was still there. Suddenly memories of him and his mother came rushing back. These memories made him happy. Something he hadn't been in a long time, but they also made him sad and made him feel a bit of anger. All kinds of memories and emotions started flowing through him, but he pushed them away as he walked to the front door and opened the door with a spare key kept close to the entrance. When he stepped in, he saw nothing had changed here either. He saw pictures all around but only focused on the ones of his mom. He was going to go visit his mom and pay his respects, but he wanted to clean up first. He had, after all, spent years on a mountain. He had noticed a clothes shop and a place so he could get a haircut, so he took a shower and headed over to the clothing shop first. As soon as he entered, the lady at the checkout counter looked at him, giving him a resentful look as if wondering what he was doing. Oing in a store like this, but Ash didn't care what she thought. He started looking around and grabbed a few things and took them to the dressing room. He went through a lot of clothes, but he finally found something he liked. A black t-shirt that hugged his toned and muscled upper body and a pair of black pants not tight-fitting but just right at the waist and legs and loose at the ankles, a black trench coat with a collar that stayed up and went down to the bottom of his calves, a cool pair of black boots and a black beret with a white Pokeball symbol on it. Imagine the guy version of Cynthia's outfit but with a beret. He liked how he looked, but he still needed a haircut. He walked up to the clerk, but this time she was staring in disbelief. The guy she saw come in with rags was now in every way appealing to her. "That looks good on you," the clerk said with a small blush. "Humph," Ash grunted. He still didn't care what she thought. She had reproached him at first and now was being nice. In his opinion, she only cared about looks. "Can I wear these out of here?" he asked without showing any emotion. "Yes, of course, let me ring them up," she said, still blushing. Of money saved up over the years, and when she passed away there was a lot there, and she left everything to Ash, so Ash withdrew some money so he could pay for everything. Ash paid for his clothes and walked out of the store and headed over to get a haircut. He remembered what Sir Aaron's hair looked and asked the barber stylist to cut it like that. After a few minutes it was done and Ash looked into the mirror. He liked what he saw. He paid for the haircut, thanked the barber and walked out. He saw a flower stand just outside the barber shop and bought some roses. He had left Lucario and Pikachu at home, so he went and got them before heading over to pay his respects. When Ash got home he saw Lucario and Pikachu sitting on the roof of the house taking in the scenery. "Hey guys, I'm back, let's go," Ash said. Both of them knew where they were going. They quickly jumped down and joined Ash. A few minutes later they were at the graveyard and were headed towards where Ash's mom was buried. When they finally got there, Ash stood in front of the tombstone thinking of what he could say. A few minutes went by silently until finally, "Mom, I miss you so much. I can't explain what it's like being here without you. You were always there for me, supporting everything I did. I could always count on you. I'm sorry I left, but you were the perfect mom. I bet you were looking over me all the time." He smiled when he said that last sentence. "She would be proud of you no matter what," said Pikachu. Ash laid the roses down in front of the tombstone and then he had an idea. He concentrated a large amount of aura into his hand, then touched the ground and then stood up and said, "I love you, Mom." As soon as he finished saying it, a time flower bloomed right where he had touched the ground. Those words would be remembered until the end of time. Lucario approached Ash and said, "She would be proud, Master. She always was." "Thanks, Lucario. Come on guys, let's go get some rest." They headed home to take a break. They would leave the next day to go sign up for the tournament. When they got home, Ash and his Pokémon trained for a short while and then went to sleep. Since there was not enough room in the house, he let them go wherever they wanted to sleep. Since there were woods nearby, most of them opted for that, so before they left for the night they said goodnight to Ash and headed over to the forest. Lucario and Pikachu as well some other Pokémon stayed in the house for the night. Later that night Ash had gotten up and went outside. He had a lot on his mind and couldn't sleep, but then again he had nights like this almost every night. Nights of peaceful sleep had left him a long time ago. He walked into the forest and walked for a while, then found himself on a hill overlooking a small part of Pallet Town and looked out into the town he had called home when he was young. Ash knew he wasn't going to get any sleep tonight, so he sat down and started to focus his aura. He closed his eyes and formed a large aura sphere in front of him. After it was large enough, he split the sphere into hundreds of small spheres and made each one start revolving around him, each of them in its own unique way. The amount of concentration and aura ability needed was one of a kind. Only he had achieved it. The only other person in history that had was Sir Aaron, but Ash had also surpassed that amount of power. Ash opened his eyes and saw the small spheres dancing in the night sky. To him they looked like little blue stars revolving around him, and they made him feel at peace. Some time had passed because when he finally checked, the sun was starting to rise in the distance, so he decided he would head back. He gathered all the little spheres, making them one large sphere again, and then made the sphere burst. After that he started walking back home. The sun was a little higher up in the sky when Ash finally got home. It was around 6 in the morning and it was time for training. He took a deep breath and let out a long whistle. Suddenly, all of Ash's Pokémon came running out of the house in the woods and lined up in front of him. "All right guys, time to train. You know the drill, everyone who can fly go up to MT. Silver and back, but let's make this interesting. First one back get a one-on-one training session with me, said Ash. After he said that, they all became instantly excited. Sure, they all had occasional one-on-one sparring sessions with Ash, but whenever they had a full day to train with him, they always came out of it stronger, smarter, and sometimes with new attacks. Ready, set, go, Ash said as all the Pokemon who could fly took off. Alright everyone else, we have around an hour, so everyone match up with someone who has a type advantage over you and then switch to someone you have a type advantage over. Lucario, you're with me. We're all going to work on endurance for about half an hour and then a little tournament. Everyone paired up with someone with a type advantage, for example fire against water, ice against dragons, etc. And Lucario and Ash were sparring. After about half an hour, Ash got everyone's attention. Alright everyone, whoever you are paired up with right now will have a match with you, but you only have 1 minute, so give it everything you got. The winner of each match will move up the bracket until the finals. The winner of that will also get a one-on-one training session with me. Lucario and Pikachu, you're both going to sit this one out and help me judge the matches. Alright everyone, get ready. Begin. After about 20 minutes, the two Pokemon fighting in the final round, Infernape and Sceptile. This match would prove the winner, but they were both tired. In the last 20 minutes they had gone from match to match. This last match would come down to willpower and endurance. A lucky shot could end the match. They both walked to the middle of the field and shook hands. Are you sure you guys don't want a break? Asked Ash. Both Pokemon nodded, signaling they were ready to start. Ash was a bit hesitant but then nodded and said, begin. Infernape started and sent a flamethrower at Sceptile. He dodged the flamethrower using extreme speed and appeared behind Infernape and tried hitting him with a leaf blade. Infernape skillfully dodged the first one and began a close combat attack. For a while they were trading punches, but they were getting tired fast, so the both separated to different sides of the field. The end was close, they both knew it, they had to finish this. Suddenly Infernape activated his special ability. The flames on his head became larger and more intense and his eyes became bright orange. Sceptile had activated his ability already in a previous battle, but he still had a trick up his sleeve. Sceptile formed a large energy ball in his mouth and it reached full size. He swallowed it, something Ash had taught a lot of his Pokemon. Sceptile now had a green aura surrounding his body. The blades on his arms grew larger and thicker and his eyes were now glowing. They both looked at each other and used their last attack. Infernape became engulfed in a blue flame while Sceptile became engulfed in a purple energy. Infernape was using Flare Blitz while Sceptile was using Giga Impact. They both rushed at each other at amazing speeds and collided in the middle of the field, causing a huge explosion. When the dust cleared, both Pokemon could be standing on opposite sides of the field with their backs to each other. It seemed like time was moving slowly when suddenly Sceptile fell to his knees. Infernape had won. Infernape turned around and approached Sceptile and then helped him up. Good job my friend, another second and you would have had me, said Infernape. Well, I guess that makes us even, 25 wins each, huh, said Sceptile. Yay, I guess it does, said Infernape. Good job both of you, I'm very proud of you both and congratulations Infernape, you won and you're finally even with Sceptile. Alright, both of you go take a nice lawn break, the others should be back any minute now, said Ash. As soon as he said this, he heard roars and yells from the Pokemon coming back from Mount pretty close together, but up in front there were three Pokemon tied up for first, each one trying as hard as they could to win. Right on cue, and it looks like Staraptor, Swellow and Garchomp are tied for first. I wonder who is going to win. The three Pokemon were only a few hundred yards away when Garchomp suddenly let out a terrifying roar and broke away from the pack. A second later Garchomp had sped past him and landed a few feet behind him. Enough. Our second later the rest of the Pokemon landed in front of Ash. Almost had you that time Garchomp. Good job, said Staraptor. You'll win next time, watch, but good job, said Swellow. All the Pokemon took ire turn, congratulating Garchomp and telling him that they would beat him next time. Ash then approached him. Good job Garchomp, I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of all of you. Now everyone go take a break, we're leaving in a few hours. Ash then went back into the house and made some breakfast. It was only 7 in the morning after all. Pikachu then came running into the house looking for Ash. Ash, can I talk to you? Said Pikachu. Are you sure buddy? I don't want you to rush into something like this. You've been with me the longest. I just want you to be 100% sure, said Ash. Yeah, I'm sure. I've actually been thinking about it for a while and I think it's finally time, said Pikachu. A few minutes ago, Pikachu had come running into the house looking for Ash, asking him if he had a moment to talk. Ash of course said yes and sat down to talk to Pikachu. Pikachu sighed and then said, Ash, you've always been there ever since that first day we met. You've always supported me and have. Never forced me into anything I didn't want to, but now I have a request for you, Ash. Of course, what do you need? Ash asked. Ash, you always gave me a choice on whether or not to evolve and I finally made my choice. Ash, it's time for me to evolve, Pikachu said. Present time. Okay buddy, if you are sure you're ready then I won't stop you. This is your choice and I support it, said Ash. He then went and got his bag and came back. Out of the bag he pulled out a small yellow steel box. Inside the box there was 2 rows of thunderstones. Ash pulled one out and held it in his hand. He then put the box back in his bag and looked at Pikachu. Are you sure? Ash asked. Pikachu nodded and then Ash held out his hand. Before Pikachu touched the stone he looked at Ash and said, Thank you for always giving me a choice. Pikachu then touched the stone with his paw and was engulfed in a white light. A few seconds later a Raichu stood where Pikachu used to. You look great Raichu, said Ash. Raichu then ran to Ash and jumped on his shoulders and rubbed his cheek on Ash's cheek and then said, Thank you. Ash had quickly adjusted to the size difference and didn't notice it anymore. Then he looked at the time. It was after 8 in the morning. He figured it was time to get everyone ready. He went out back and let out a long whistle. A few seconds later all his Pokémon were lined up in front of him. No Nay said anything about Pikachu having evolved since they all knew he had been thinking about it and finally told Ash. Raichu stood next to Lucario in the line. The both looked at each other and nodded then looked back at Ash. Well guys, it's time we get going. There's 5 days before the tournament starts, so I want to get there early so we can get some training for a few days and relax until it starts. The tournament is all the way over in Sinnoh, so we should get there quick. Garchomp, you're going to be the one taking us, okay? Garchomp nodded and went to get himself ready. Alright guys, it's time, said Ash. He then returned everyone into their Pokeballs and Lucario and Raichu joined Ash. Ready Garchomp, let's go. About 2 hours later. You okay Garchomp? Garchomp smirked and flew 3 times faster and then slowed back down to original speed. Still want to ask me if I'm okay? Common Ash, you trained me better than that, said Garchomp. Okay sorry, anyways we're almost there. See those stadiums? Well, land there. A few seconds later Garchomp landed in front of a large hotel. Ash, Lucario and Raichu jumped off Garchomp. Ash then patted the large dragon on the neck and said good job, Gah. Garchomp then let out an enormous roar that terrified anyone who was standing nearby, but to Ash, Raichu, and Lucario it was normal. Thanks, Ash said then recalled Garchomp into his Pokeball. Ash headed for the Pokémon Center next to the hotel to heal all his Pokémon and to register in the tournament. On his way there he noticed that all the girls he passed on his way there were staring at him, blushing, giggling and whispering. When he got to the center he looked back and noticed some of them were even following him. He walked in and saw that not much had changed since he had been in a Pokémon Center. He walked up to the front desk and was greeted by a smiling Nurse Joy. Hello, welcome to the Pokémon Center. How may I help you? Asked Nurse Joy. Hello Nurse Joy, could you please heal my Pokémon? Asked Ash. Of course, just put them on this tray and Chansey will come and get them. Ash then took out every Pokeball one by one and placed them on the trays. Nurse Joy was amazed. She had never seen anyone with this many Pokémon. When he got the last Pokeball onto the trays he looked at Raichu and Lucario and asked them if they wanted to stay or go with him, and they of course chose to stay with him. Okay, we will have them ready in about an hour. Anything else I can help you with? She asked. Actually yes, I'm here to register for the tournament, Ash said. Okay, if I could just borrow your Pokédex for a bit to register you and your Pokémon. Nurse Joy, I'm going to need for you not to yell out my name when you see it, okay? She nodded then placed the Pokédex on a machine. A few seconds passed and then she saw the name. She gasped and covered her mouth and then said, You're Ash Ketchum, you've been missing for years, where have you been? That isn't important, Nurse Joy, I need To ask you if there is a possibility to go by a different name during the competition. I don't know, let me check. Here, it says that you can go by another name until the quarter-finals, but May I ask why? It's a long story, nurse, but thanks for checking. Could you put my name down as Red Satoshi? She nodded and put in the information and finished registering him and gave him back his Pokédex. You're all registered, Mr. Satoshi. Good luck and have a good day, said Nurse Joy. Ash thanked her and then smiled and winked at her, then walked away, leaving a blushing Nurse Joy. After he walked out of the Pokemon Center, he headed to hotel building next to it. Nurse Joy had told him that Scott had reserved a room for him in the hotel next door. He had grown used to sleeping in the woods, but he figured he could make an exception for the time being. Anyway, he would spend most of his time outside. He walked up to the front desk and saw that the lady there was madly blushing and looking up at him. He sighed and walked up to her. Hello, miss, I have a reservation, said Ash. Of course, sir, what is your name? She said. Then Ash realized that the reservation would be under his name, but then he decided to try something. Actually, I didn't make the reservation, an acquaintance of mine did. His name is Scott Enshita. Let me check. Yeah, here you go, your room number is 365 and there is also a letter here for you. Have a nice day, and if you need anything it'll be right here. As she said that last sentence, she smiled and winked at Ash. He took the letter and said, thank you. Ash then headed to the elevator with Lucario walking behind him and Raichu on his shoulder. He got on the elevator and pushed the button on the floor his room was in. When he got out of the elevator, he noticed he was on the top floor of the hotel. When he found his room, he opened the door and saw the humongous room he would be staying in. He was shocked. I guess Scott really went all out, huh? Ash said. Ash looked around he roomed for a bit and then sat down on the couch to read the letter that he had gotten. Dear Ash, decided to participate in the tournament and checked into the hotel. Hope you like the room. I decided to put it under my name, thinking you wouldn't want anyone to know you were here. So how was it on that mountain? Don't worry, I didn't tell anyone. I'll be there for the later rounds of the competition. I'd like to talk to you, so I'll see you when I get there. Good luck, Ash, not that you need it. Sincerely, Scott. Well, looks like after all that time he still kept tabs on me. Come on guys, let's go look Arrow. And outside, Ash said, then walked towards the door with Lucario and Raichu following him. They walked out of the elevator into the lobby, and on their way to the front door Ash saw the clerk that added him was still there, and she noticed him and winked at him. The three of them walked out of the hotel and headed towards the forest nearby. They walked through the forest for a while until they found themselves in a clearing with a pond. This is the perfect place for us to train. What do you guys think? Ash asked. Lucario and Raichu looked around for a bit and then nodded at Ash, agreeing with him. We better get back and get everyone else to show them this place. Let's go. The three of them walked back to the Pokemon Center to get everyone else. He walked through the front doors and headed to the front desk when he heard something that made him stop in his tracks. See, May, I told you we weren't lost. Be quiet, Max, we're lucky to have gotten here at all. Alright, you two, stop fighting and let's go get Max registered. We still need a room to stay in, said Dawn. After 6 years, Ash still knew who those voices belonged to, and when he heard them again after all this time, he was filled with rage. Raichu and Lucario noticed what had changed Ash's mood and tried to calm him down. The 5 people that had walked in behind him were now heading over to the front desk. Ash decided it would be best if he got his Pokemon and left as soon as possible. He walked to the front desk and heard the youngest member of the group talking with Nurse Joy. Nurse Joy, I'd like to register for the tournament, Max said. Nurse Joy then noticed Ash and said, of course, just hold on for a moment. She then noticed Ash and called him over. Mr. Satoshi, your Pokemon are ready. Ash was glad she had not used his real name and then walked over to the desk and nodded at the nurse while Chansey came out pushing 2 carts with the trays Ash had placed his Pokeballs on. Ash opened his bag and started placing the Pokeballs inside quickly but carefully. Max then walked up to him and started asking him a lot of questions. Wow, are all these your Pokemon? How did you get that many? Are you also in the competition? Ash just ignored him and kept gathering his Pokemon. When May walked up to him. I'm sorry if my brother is bothering you, but he gets excited when he sees a lot of Pokemon, said May. Ash gathered the last of his Pokemon and turned towards the door and walked away. Hey, my sister is talking to you, answer her. Ash just kept on walking, and by now Raichu and Lucario had joined him, but before he reached the door he heard Max yelling at him again. "Hey, didn't you hear me? Apologize to my sister." When Ash just ignored him, Max went up to Ash and said, "Fine, I challenge you to a Pokemon battle and when I win you will apologize to my sister," said Max. "I don't have time to waste on you, kid, go bother someone else," said Ash and kept walking. "You and your Pokemon must be weak, that's why you don't want to battle me," said Max. Ash stopped dead in his tracks, then turned and looked at Max with rage in his eyes. "Don't ever call my Pokemon weak. You want a match? Fine, let's go outside," said Ash. Ash W. As heading outside when Raichu jumped on his shoulder. When everyone else saw this, it reminded them of Ash. Little did they know he was closer than they thought. They all walked outside and found an empty practice field to battle in. Ash and Max walked to opposite sides of the field and Brock stood in the center. "This will be a 3-on-3 Pokemon battle with no substitutions, first one to lose. All 3 Pokemon will lose the match, send out your Pokemon." "Gallade, I choose you," yelled Max. Ash looked at Lucario next to him and talked to him through his aura and told him, "Will you help me out with this one, my friend?" Ash asked. Lucario was the only one Ash would talk through aura in battle. He figured it would be unfair to anyone in the competition, so he decided he would only do it with Lucario. But right now he didn't care about fairness, he just wanted to destroy the person across from him. Lucario leapt onto the field and took his battle stance. "Begin," Brock yelled. "Gallade X Scissor," yelled Max. When Gallade got close, Lucario disappeared and then reappeared behind it and began sending a barrage of punches at Gallade, which all hit. "Gallade Psychic," Max quickly yelled. Before Gallade was able to send out the attack, Lucario disappeared again and reappeared behind him once again and sent a huge aura sphere at Gallade, knocking it back. When it landed, it was unconscious with swirls for eyes. Max gritted his teeth and sent out his next Pokemon. "Go Mightyena," yelled Max. Lucario sent a barrage of aura spheres at Mightyena and then disappeared again using extreme speed. When the aura spheres had finished, Lucario appeared in the air above Mightyena with a staff in his paws and hit Mightyena while coming down. When he landed, Lucario started attacking over and over with his staff, then leapt to his side of the field. A moment later, Mightyena was on the ground, knocked out. "How are you commanding, Lucario?" Max demanded. Ash just stood there waiting for Max to call out his final Pokemon. "Fine, you want to play with speed? Go Sceptile," Max yelled. Ash scoffed and said, "You think he can match up to Lucario? You're sadly mistaken." "Sceptile Leaf Blade," Max said. Lucario W. Waited until the last second and stepped out of the way and then sent a blaze kick towards Sceptile, which had a huge effect on Sceptile. Sceptile then sent an energy ball towards Lucario while Lucario sent an aura sphere at Sceptile. Both spheres collided and created a cloud of smoke. When the smoke cleared, Lucario was seen in front of Sceptile sending a flurry of punches towards him. After a few aura punched, Lucario returned to his side of the field. Sceptile Solar Beam. Lucario saw the grass Pokemon charging its attack up and turned back and looked at Ash. Ash nodded and then Lucario did as well. A few seconds later, Sceptile launched the attack at Lucario and then an explosion happened. "Yes, direct hit," cheered Max. But if someone had looked close enough before the attack hit, they would. They seen the attack being stopped just mere inches in front of Lucario by a blue barrier. Through the smoke, everyone could hear the cries of pain from a Pokemon, but it was not Lucario, it was Sceptile. When the smoke cleared, Lucario was standing over a fainted Sceptile with the bone staff in his hand. Lucario then walked over and stood next to Ash. Ash looked at Lucario and patted him on the head and said, "Good job, my friend." "Thank you, master, but his Pokemon were not much of a challenge," said Lucario. "Either way, great job." Ash then turned to look at Max and said, "You better think twice before calling my Pokemon weak, kid. If anyone here is weak, it's you. It's surprising you were even invited to the tournament." Ash then turned around and walked towards the forest. "Hey, don't talk to my broth. Are like that, come back here and apologize," May said and then started following Ash, but before she got close, Lucario stepped in front of her and stopped her. "Rog," Lucario growled at May. "Leave the Lucario, they're not worth our time," Ash said to Lucario. Lucario then glared at May and joined Ash. "Don't follow me," he said to the others as they were walking away. "Ash," Raichu and Lucario walked in to the forest and then dropped out of sight. Who is this guy? Max thought. Ash was now walking through the forest to the place he had found and then Raichu asked. Are you okay, Ash? Yeah, I'm okay, Saint didn't think I would see them this soon, said Ash. It would have lot right, master, said Lucario. Yeah, you're right, anyway come and let's go and relax a bit, Ash said. What do you guys think? It would be a good place for training until the competition starts and a place to relax after battles. All of Ash's Pokémon were now at the clearing he had found earlier and they all agreed that T.S. would be a great place to train and relax. Okay guys, we will just have a simple sparring session and then relax for the rest of the day. A few hours later. Okay everyone, good job, that will be it for today. How about you guys go find some food and relax? Everyone nodded and went into the forest to find food. Lucario ran off into the forest and quickly came back with some berries in his hands and handed half to Raichu. Ash smiled at how his two Pokémon were so close to each other, you could say they were the adults in the family. You guys relax, I'm going to go meditate for a bit, Ash said to them. They both nodded and sat down and started talking. Ash then headed for the small little island in the middle of the pond and sat down, closed his eyes and then was surrounded by aura. Meanwhile, in the Pokémon Center cafeteria, Brock, Misty, May, Max and Dawn were eating dinner and talking when May noticed something was wrong with her brother. Max, are you okay? You seem a bit quiet, May said. Quote, it's just that I was thinking about my battle earlier, I mean that guy beat me so easily, what if I'm not good enough to be here, said Max. That guy was a jerk, Max, what he said doesn't matter, you've proven you deserve to be here, said Misty. Yay Max, you're a good trainer, just train a bit more and I'm sure you'll beat him, said Brock. Yay Max, just do your best, but on that subject he was kind of cute, don't you think, Dawn said. Dawn, only you would think that after he was rude to us, said May. Yay I know he was, but you have to admit it, he was cute, and May, I saw looking him over a couple of times, you too Misty, said Dawn. Both May and Misty denied it, but they could not hide the blush that overcame their faces. Well guys, it's getting late, we should head back to our rooms. Max, we will all train with you tomorrow, how about it, said Brock. Thanks everyone, I feel better, alright let's head to our rooms. Back in the forest, Ash had just finished meditating and decided it was time for everyone to go to sleep. Ash let out a loud whistle and moments later his Pokémon were all there. Alright everyone, it's time for bed, so pick a spot anywhere you want. Infernape and I will be training most of the day tomorrow, so you all know what to do. Raichu and Lucario will be in charge. Alright, have a good night guys, I'll be here if you need me, said Ash. Ash then walked over to one of the trees, sat down leaning against it and dozed off. He had gotten used to sleeping like that anyway during all his time away. The sky was still dark when Ash woke up. He got up careful not to wake Raichu sleeping beside him and Lucario sleeping on a branch above him. He quietly walked over to Infernape, who was already awake, and then they both walked deeper into the forest. When they were a bit away from where everyone else was, Infernape spoke up. So where are we going to train? Asked Infernape. Ash stopped and looked up at a small nearby mountain. Up there, and we are going to run there, see if you can catch up, Ash said, and then started sprinting. Infernape also started and was slowly gaining on Ash, but every time he got close Ash would somehow break away. They were close to the top of the mountain and they were now neck and neck and a few hundred feet away. They both kept running, but when it was over Ash had won. It was close but clear who won. They were both a bit tired but not exhausted or unable to do anything else. Ash and his Pokémon were in excellent shape, they were used to this, but still they were a bit tired. Then Ash spoke up. Okay, that was the first part of the training to get you energized. To get your adrenaline pumping to the point where you feel you have to keep moving. Now as you know, I've trained everyone to use a bit of aura, so today I'm going to teach you to harness it and it in combat, but aura is very powerful, so the move you will learn should only be used in an emergency or last ditch effort. So now that you're all worked up, sit down and concentrate on your aura, control it, and then we can move to the next step. After a few minutes Infernape was enveloped in a blue aura and was now in full control. Okay Infernape, now you must choose which of your attacks you wish to infuse with your aura. Most of the other have chosen their strongest attack, which will you choose? Ash said. Infernape thought for a few seconds and then looked at Ash and said. Flare Blitz. Yay, I imagined you would pick that. Alright, let's begin. A few hours later. Okay, again, said Ash. Infernape's body became engulfed in a deep blue aura as he ran toward a huge boulder. To anyone it would look like a normal flare blitz, but it was something completely different. Then suddenly when Infernape struck the boulder, it turned into dust. Good job, Infernape. Now remember, the more control you have over your aura, the stronger the attack will become, so practice the move in your control and you will be unstoppable, said Ash. Of course, Ash, said Infernape. Okay, well, I think it's time we got back. It's past lunchtime. You've worked hard today, so we'll walk back and find some food on the way. Meanwhile, a beautiful woman with long blonde hair had just arrived at the Pokemon Center on the back of her Garchomp. Everyone noticed the young woman and were talking among themselves about her and the Garchomp that was with her. Of course, this young woman was the champion of the Sinnoh region, Cynthia. He jumped off Garchomp's back and returned her to her Pokeball and then walked into the Pokemon Center. She had been invited to the tournament that was taking place and was hesitant at first, but then she realized that the person she had been looking for might be at this tournament. She walked up to the front desk and said, "Hello, Nurse Joy." "Hello, Ms. Cynthia, how are you today and how may I help you?" asked Nurse Joy. "I'm fine, thank you. As you know, I'm participating in the tournament and I was wondering if you could tell me if a certain trainer I'm looking for is in the tournament," said Cynthia. "Of course, what is the name?" asked Nurse Joy. "Ash Ketchum," said Cynthia. Nurse Joy was shocked when she heard the name but quickly covered it up by going over to her computer to look for the name. He knew that Ash Ketchum was here, but she had promised not tell anyone, so she turned to Cynthia and then said, "Sorry, I could not find anyone by that name, but there's still time until the tournament starts." "Thank you, Nurse Joy," said Cynthia, disappointed. "Was he special to you?" asked Nurse Joy suddenly. Cynthia was a bit shocked that the nurse had suddenly asked her about such a thing, but decided it was probably best if she talked about it. "Yes, he was, and I pushed him away," said Cynthia sadly. "I'm sure you'll find him, you never know, this tournament could be it," said Nurse Joy. "Yay, thank you, Nurse Joy. Have a good day," said Cynthia and then headed to her hotel room. The next few days went by quickly. Everyone who was participating in the competition was training hard. Ash made sure his Pokemon were healthy and ready. The only question was if he was ready. The competition started tomorrow and Ash was giving one last speech to his Pokemon. "Tomorrow is the first battle, guys. I know you ready. You are the strongest there is, and starting tomorrow we will show everyone how strong we've become. Tomorrow will be the beginning of a whole new adventure, and on this journey we will always come out on top," said Ash. Ash's Pokemon all cheered in excitement. They were glad they had such a caring trainer and friend, and they knew that no matter what he would be there for them, therefore they would always be there for him. "Okay guys, until the competition is over, the ones not battling will be doing light training every other day. I don't want you guys getting hurt, okay? Infernape, it'll be just you tomorrow, okay? I want to send it, Ash." Infernape nodded and roared loudly. "Okay everyone, it's time to get some rest. Good night," said Ash. Everyone then walked off into different places for the night, and Ash, Lucario and Raichu went to the tree they had rested at for the last few days. Ash rarely went into the hotel room he had and only used it when he needed a place for himself. Slowly he dozed off, knowing that tomorrow his life would change once again. The next morning Ash woke up to his Pokemon having breakfast and talking amongst themselves. He got up and went to wash his face at the pond. He had decided that his Pokemon deserved a break, so today there would be no training for anyone. Ash then called Infernape over and recalled him into his Pokeball. He then told his Pokemon he would be back in a while and headed towards the stadium with Raichu on his shoulder and Lucario at his side. A few minutes later he was in front of the Pokemon Center and decided to walk in and see if they had listings of who would be battling who. Ash then walked up to the front desk and said, "Hello Nurse Joy, I was wondering if there was listings of the battles taking place today." "Yes, there are listings, but they will be posted after the opening ceremonies, which are in a few minutes. I imagine you were heading over there," said Nurse Joy. "Yay, I was okay then, thank you. I will be back after the ceremony is over," said Ash and then began walking toward the door. "Oh wait, Mr. Satoshi," yelled out Nurse Joy. Ash turned back and walked over to her again. "Yes nurse, is there something else?" "And then, "K you for remembering about the name," said Ash. "Yes, it's actually about that. Earlier this week the Sinnoh champion Cynthia came looking for you. She said she had been looking for Ash Ketchum for a long time, but I told her there was no one with that name here, she said. When Ash heard this he went into deep thought, remembering the woman he had once considered a mentor and how he had felt about her, but he shook it off and said, "Thank you, nurse. She was important to you, wasn't she?" asked Nurse Joy. "Yes, she was, still is, but she would never feel the same way," said Ash. "Maybe you should tell her. You never know, she could feel the same way," she said. "Maybe I will, maybe. Anyway, thanks again, Nurse Joy. I should really be heading to the ceremony," said Ash. Ash then walked out of the Pokemon Center and headed over to the main stadium. A few minutes later he was standing in the back leaning against a wall waiting for the ceremony to start. He was looking around and saw a few people he recognized. But the majority of the trainers there were strangers to him, but of course he had been gone for 6 years. Ash kept looking around until he noticed someone was looking directly at him. He immediately recognized the person with long gray hair, gray shirt and black pants. The man got up and walked up to Ash. "It's been a long time, Ash," he said quietly. "It sure has been, Tobias. I'm kind of surprised you recognized me so fast," said Ash. "Well, I'll never forget the face of the person to beat all my Pokemon," said Tobias. "Yay, well, you better not be eliminated too early. I want the pleasure of defeating you again," said Ash, smiling. "Don't be so sure, Ash. I have new Pokemon with me and I've been training for this rematch," said Tobias. "Then may the best man win," said Ash as he extended his hand toward Tobias, which he took, and they shook hands, and then Tobias returned to his seat. While he was waiting, Ash closed his eyes and started concentrating when suddenly he felt an aura he had not felt in such a long time, an aura that made him smile but also made him sad. He quickly opened his eyes and saw her walking over to the stage. The ceremony was starting, but he could not tear his eyes away from her. Then suddenly he snapped back to reality and heard Mr. Goodshow talking. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tournament of Legends. You have all been chosen because of what you have achieved in your time as Pokemon trainers. At this time I would like to present you to the winner of the last Tournament of Legends, Miss Cynthia White." "Hello and welcome everyone. I'll keep this short so we can begin. We have the best trainers from every region here competing for the title of best of the best, so go out there and try your best." As she said all this, Ash noticed that she was looking around the crowd as if trying to find someone, but when she didn't he saw a bit of sadness and disappointment in her. Mr. Goodshow then took the microphone and began explaining the rules of the tournament. There will be 4 preliminary rounds, all of which will be 3-on-3 battles. After that will be the top 16, which will be double battles of 6 Pokemon each trainer, and then finally the quarter-finals. Semi-finals and finals will be 6-on-6. We have decided that the first match will be here in this stadium right after the opening ceremony is over. We will randomly pick 2 names and they will be he first to compete in the tournament. Everyone else's matches will be posted at the Pokemon Center after the first match, so without further ado let's pick the first 2 trainers, he said as he pointed towards the big screen at the end of the stadium. Everyone watched as names were alternating on the big screen until suddenly they stopped showing 2 names, one of which was a mystery to all but a group of people and the other which was well known. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Our first match will be between the Frontier Brain Brandon and Mr. Red Satoshi. Both trainers, please head to your corresponding locker room and we will call you out when everyone else is in the stands and we have cleared the field, said Mr. Goodshow. Ash heard this and began walking towards the tunnel that led toward the trainer's locker's room. Moments later he was sitting down meditating with Infernape, Raichu and Lucario next to him, when suddenly he heard a voice coming from the speakers. "Will both train? Please report to the field to start the match." "Ready, Infernape?" asked Ash. "Always," said Infernape with a smirk. Ash returned Infernape to his Pokeball and headed over to the field. When he neared the end of the tunnel leading to the field he stopped and took a deep breath, looked at Lucario and Raichu, and then without another thought he walked out of the tunnel into the trainer's box to begin the match. There was an enormous crowd in the stands. Everyone who had attended the opening ceremony was here, considering there were no matches until after Ash's. Everyone in the crowd already GHT. This match would not last long considering Brandon was one of the toughest competitors in this competition, so anyone battling him would be guaranteed a loss. Brandon and Ash were each now in their corresponding trainer box and ready to begin, the referee then said. This will be a 3-on-3 battle between Frontier Brain Brandon and Red Satoshi. The winner of this battle will advance to the next round in the tournament. The first trainer to defeat all 3 of the opponent's Pokémon will be the winner. Begin. Regice, I need your assistance, yelled out Brandon as he threw a Pokeball to T. He fielded and then a large Pokémon with a body made of ice materialized on the field. Ash took one look at the Regice and took Infernape's Pokeball in his hand and said, "Infernape, battle ready." Infernape then appeared on the field. Then took a look over at Regice and smirked. "Regice, use ancient power," yelled Brandon. "Infernape, dig and use overheat," Ash said calmly. "Regice, try to predict where he is going to come up," said Brandon. Ash smirked when he heard Brandon. Unfortunately, he was wrong on what Infernape was doing. Some time had passed and Infernape had still not come up. Suddenly Regice began screeching in pain. Brandon began looking around to find out what had hurt his Pokémon when he noticed the field was starting to heat up and then suddenly flames erupted from underneath the field, engulfing Regice and intensely burning him, and then as if he came from thin air, Infernape was in front of Regice and Ash gave a single command. "Flamethrower." Infernape took a deep breath and let loose Bahi's mouth, and then as soon as it started it was over. Infernape walked over to his side of the field walking by a fainted Regice. Regice is unable to battle. The winner is Infernape, green corner. "Send out your next Pokémon," said the referee. The whole crowd was in awe when they saw how quickly Brandon's Regice had been defeated. Brandon looked shocked too but quickly shook it off and grabbed his next Pokeball. "Registeel, I need your assistance," yelled Brandon. "Registeel vs Infernape. Begin." "Registeel, Zen Headbutt," said Brandon. "Dodge it and then use Flamethrower," said Ash. "Registeel Chaw. RGED at Infernape," while a white light engulfed him, but the moment he was about to hit Infernape with the attack, Infernape stepped to the left, making Registeel miss by mere inches. Then without a second thought, Infernape shot a massive flamethrower at Registeel, making the steel Pokémon screech in pain. "Registeel, quick rock throw," yelled Brandon. Registeel turned quickly and shot a barrage of rocks towards Infernape, hitting the fire ape, making him wince but otherwise not causing him much pain. "Infernape, extreme speed," said Ash. Infernape shook off Registeel's attack and disappeared in the blink of an eye. "Registeel, wait for it to appear and quickly use Hyper Beam," Brandon said to Registeel. "Infernape, you know what to do, wait for my go," said Ash. Registeel was looking around for any sign of Infernape when suddenly, "Now!" exclaimed Ash. When Ash said this, Infernape appeared in front of Registeel, but Registeel was ready, letting loose a bright orange beam, but what happened next shocked everyone but Ash. The Hyper Beam passed right through Infernape, then Ash yelled out, "Blaze Kick." The real Infernape then appeared above Registeel with his right foot set ablaze. He then brought down the Blaze Kick onto Registeel brutally and effectively knocking him out. Registeel is unable to battle. Infernape is the winner. Green corner, please send out your final Pokémon. Brandon was now utterly shocked. No one had defeated 2 of his most powerful Pokémon without even losing one. His Infernape wasn't even breaking a sweat yet. He grabbed his last Pokeball and threw it onto the field. "Regirock, I need your assistance," yelled Brandon. "Regirock vs Infernape. Begin." "Infernape, extreme speed," said Ash. Infernape disappeared once again, but his time Brandon was ready. "Regirock, earthquake," said Brandon. Regirock then stomped his foot down on the ground, causing Infernape to reappear down on one knee after losing his balance. Regirock, quick rock tomb, followed by Hyper Beam. Regirock once again stamped his foot on the ground, causing large boulder to rise up in the air and then fall, hitting Infernape, but before it was over Regirock charged up a bright orange spear and fired a Hype Beam out, so hitting Infernape, causing a huge cloud of smoke to rise. When the smoke cleared, Infernape could be seen laying on the ground. The referee then began to say, "Infernape is on." Infernape then began to get up with a huge smirk on his face, and then suddenly Infernape let out a huge roar, making the flames on his head grow immensely and giving him a bloodthirsty look. Ash smiled. He knew Infernape didn't need to use his ability, but he knew Infernape loved intimidating other Pokémon with it, and who was he to deny his Pokémon a bit of fun? Meanwhile, in the stands, a group of people were shocked to see Infernape do such a thing. They had seen only one other Infernape able to do such thing, but up in the champions box a certain blonde-haired champion was thinking the same thing, so she decided that She would have a talk with this trainer after the match. Infernape extreme speed, get close, said Ash. Regirock earthquake, yelled Brandon. Regirock lifted his foot up but before he could bring it down Infernape appeared behind Regirock. Elemental combat, said Ash. Infernape then growled and built up a Mach punch in his left hand, electricity in his right hand, and fire in both his legs letting low. A flurry of punches and kicks against Regirock. After a while Infernape stopped and jumped back to his side of the field watching a nearly fainted Regirock. Okay Infernape finish it Flare Blitz, Ash yelled out. Regirock tried to get up and use Zen Headbutt. Infernape spun his head and the flames from his head turned blue and engulfed him and then he began charging towards Regirock. Meanwhile Regirock was getting up and a white light engulfed his body and he began charging at Infernape. The two then collided in the middle of the field creating a huge cloud of smoke. After a few seconds Infernape could be seen walking out of the smoke virtually unharmed. After the smoke cleared Regirock could be seen knocked out and badly burned in the middle of the field. Regirock is unable to battle winners are Infernape and Red Satoshi, said the referee. Everyone in the stands was shocked, they could not believe that a trainer as powerful as Brandon was defeated so easily and by an unknown trainer. Then out of nowhere the crowd began to clap and cheer and one by one everyone joined in until everyone in the stadium was clapping for this unknown trainer. Ash then looked at Infernape and said, "Good job my friend, let's go get some rest," and then returned him to his Pokeball. Ash then began walking to the tunnel and started making his way out of the stadium. When he reached the outside of the stadium there were crowds of people waiting for him. He didn't want this, he wasn't ready for this so he walked outside and let out a loud whistle, then within seconds an ear-piercing roar was heard. Followed by a Garchomp landing in front of Ash. He patted the large dragon on the head and jumped on his back along with Raichu and Lucario, then without another thought Garchomp took off at amazing speeds and headed to their resting spot but a certain blonde champion watched as the trainer sped away and called out her own Garchomp and followed him. Ash's Garchomp landed in the large clearing and seeing his and Ash's arrival causing all of Ash's Pokémon to come and greet their friend. Ash thanked Garchomp for the ride to which Garchomp responded by giving Ash a gentle bite on his head then Charizard stepped up to Ash and asked, "How did the match go?" Ash took out Infernape's Pokeball and let him out. He did amazing, at the end he had a bit of fun and activated his ability I can still remember when he first learned how to control it back in Sinnoh. "Okay guys go get some rest I'll go see who I'm up against tomorrow later today," said Ash. Ash then walked off to the tree where he slept and sat down and started to think. "What is on your mind master?" asked Lucario. "Seeing her again just brought back all those memories, I still care for her and I never told her," said Ash. "Then this tournament is your chance to tell her," said Lucario. "Yay maybe I just wouldn't know what to say last time I talked to her I was accused of harming her Pokémon." Off in the edge of the forest Cynthia was listening to the whole conversation and gasped when she heard this. After all this time she had finally found him and she heard him say he cared for her and then she heard Ash keep talking and once again began listening. "You never know master what if she feels the same way," said Lucario. "You're right Lucario maybe I should tell her thanks my friend," said Ash as he patted Lucario in the head. "Cynthia you can come out now. There's no need to hide," said Ash as he turned his head looking towards the forest. Cynthia then walked out of the forest and into the clearing saying only one word. "Ash, hey Thea," he said turning around to look at her. "Ash is it really you?" asked Cynthia. "Yay it's me," he said. Cynthia then ran over to Ash and threw her arms around him, buried her head into his chest and began crying. Ash then cupped her face in his hands and wiped away the tears streaming from her eyes. Cynthia then looked into his eyes and began to say, "Ash I don't know how to say this or if it even means anything after all this time but I am really." "Stop Cynthia let me make this clear right now, you have nothing to be sorry for, it wasn't you that caused me to lose that turned everyone's back on me. That burden is not for you to carry," said Ash. "But Ash I accused you of hurting my Pokémon it was my fault you were blamed," she said. Ash then broke the embrace he and Cynthia were in. This was a hard topic for him to discuss but he took a deep breath and said, "Cynthia what happened that day was not your fault, you blamed me because you were worried for your Pokémon I know how much you For them, and I cannot blame you for something I would have done. None of what happened was your fault. You never testified against me. You did not betray me. You were just protecting your loved ones," said Ash sternly. "Ash, thank you. I still feel like all that happened is partially my fault, but thank you for saying that," she said, and then she began to cry softly. Ash then walked over to her and wrapped his arms around her, resting his chin on her head. She then looked up at him and said, "I'm sorry, Ash. I'm just so happy to see you again." "I'm happy to see you too, Cynthia," said Ash. Cynthia then looked around and noticed all of Ash's Pokémon. "Ash, are these all your Pokémon?" Cynthia asked. "Yep, most of them are the same ones I had when I was younger," said Ash. "That's impressive. You've really come a long way," said Cynthia. "Yeah, I guess, but anyways, look, I was thinking, how about we go catch up over dinner," said Ash. "It would be my pleasure," said Cynthia. "Very well, just give me a moment," said Ash as he called over Lucario and Raichu. "Okay guys, I'm going to need you to take charge while I'm gone. If you guys need anything, you know what to do," said Ash. Both Pokémon nodded and went back to their activities. Ash then called Garchomp over and said to Cynthia, "Okay Cynthia, ready to go," he said as he climbed atop Garchomp and extended his hand toward her. She nodded and took his hand, and a second later they were ready to go. "Okay Garchomp, not too fast, remember Cynthia is here too," said Ash. Garchomp nodded and then let out a loud ear-splitting roar, to which Cynthia responded by wrapping her arms around Ash's waist. And then Garchomp took off. A couple minutes later they were landing in town. The both jumped off Garchomp and then Ash thanked him and then told Cynthia, "We're going to be in there a while if you want to let your Pokémon out. I only have my Garchomp with me at the moment," she said. "Perfect, we can let them out to get to know each other while we have dinner," said Ash. Cynthia nodded and let out her Garchomp. A few seconds later she was looking over at Ash's Garchomp with a slight blush. "Okay Garchomp, take care of her and have fun. I'll call you if I need you," said Ash. Garchomp nodded and walked over to Cynthia's Garchomp, and they both flew off into the forest nearby. Ash then led Cynthia to a nearby restaurant named the Articuno Lounge, but before going in he looked at Cynthia and said, "Remember Cynthia, people here know me as Red Satoshi, and for now it's better if it stays that way. They will all know who I am in due time, but for now I don't want them to," said Ash. Cynthia nodded and they both walked into the restaurant. Cynthia looked around the restaurant. It was a glamorous place with 2 floors and blue crystal chandeliers and paintings of the ice legend Articuno. They walked up to the front desk to see a young woman barely paying attention to anyone that walked in or out. Ash approached her and said, "Excuse me miss, table for 2 please," said Ash. She then looked up and saw Ash and began checking him out and then said, "Certainly sir, follow me." Ash then extended his arm towards Cynthia, which she happily took. The girl taking them to the IR table saw Cynthia with Ash and frowned and kept walking towards the table. They reached their table and sat down and looked at the menu. After a few minutes the waiter took their order and went to get their food. There was a long silence between Ash and Cynthia, mainly due to the fact that Cynthia did not want to reopen old wounds, but after a while Ash spoke up. "How have you been?" asked Ash. "I've been okay. It has been really busy though, there are so many things to do when you are champion of the region," said Cynthia. "I will keep that in mind when I go for the title," said Ash, smiling. They both laughed, and a few seconds later their food had arrived and they begun eating. While they were eating, Cynthia looked at Ash and saw how much he had changed over the years. Ash then looked at her and gave her a smile. After a few minutes both were done eating. Ash paid and they walked out of the restaurant with Cynthia's arms still wrapped around Ash's. They walked for a while making small talk. Until around sunset they found themselves on a small hill overlooking the town. They stopped and looked around, enjoying the peacefulness around them, and then they looked into each other's eyes. Cynthia looked into those hazel brown eyes and saw the young man that cared about other people and his Pokémon. She saw the boy that she fell in love with all those years ago, but she also saw pain caused by the people he believed were his friends, and pain that in her opinion was caused by herself. Tears then began falling from Cynthia's eyes, but Ash wiped them away and looked into her eyes. He still saw the woman he considered a mentor, a symbol of what he wanted to accomplish. He saw the woman he felt love for, but he also saw sadness for a burden that was not hers to carry. Still looking into her eyes, Ash began to say, Cynthia, 6 years ago I left to get away from the people that brought me pain. I left because the only person that would always be there for me passed away. For 6 years I had nothing but memories of a life I once lived. But the best memory was one of a brave and beautiful woman, a woman I grew to love. That woman is you, Cynthia. Cynthia then smiled as their P.S. came closer and closer until they finally met and they share a warm loving kiss, and as this happened Ash's aura glowed slightly, engulfing them both, signaling that they were meant to be together. A while later they were both sitting down with Ash's arm around Cynthia and her head on his shoulder watching the sunset. After some time the sky was dark and it was getting late. Ash looked over at Cynthia and saw that she was asleep. She looked beautiful and so calm, so he didn't want to wake her. He picked her up and leaned her on a nearby tree, and as to not make any loud noises he called Garchomp using his aura. A few seconds later 2 dragons, one very large and the one slightly smaller, arrived. He then walked over to the smaller one and said, "Hey, Cynthia fell asleep and I don't want to wake her. Would you mind taking us to where you are staying so she can rest?" Cynthia's Garchomp nodded, so Ash went and picked up Cynthia and climbed atop his Garchomp. Cynthia's Garchomp then took off with Ash's Garchomp following her. Moments later they were close to the hotel. Ash had been given a room to Cynthia's Garchomp flew up until they reached a room on the top floor with a balcony. Ash got off his Garchomp and went to open the balcony door, which thankfully was unlocked. He then found the bedroom and gently laid Cynthia on her bed. He walked out of the room and closed the door and stepped in. To the living room he found a pen and paper and left a note for her. Ash then stepped back out into the balcony and said, "Thank you, Garchomp. If you both want to spend time together sometime, just come and tell me, okay?" he said, looking back and forth between both Garchomp. Ash said goodnight to Cynthia's Garchomp and jumped on his so they could fly back to the clearing. On the way back he asked Garchomp, "So did you have fun?" asked Ash. "Yeah, we had a good time. She actually remembered me from back then," said Garchomp. "I'm glad you had fun," said Ash as they were arriving at the clearing. Garchomp silently landed and Ash jumped off. Ash said goodnight to Garchomp, to which he responded him by giving Ash a gentle bite on the head. As he walked to where he usually slept, Lucario and Raichu joined him. "Did you enjoy yourself, Master?" asked Lucario. "Yeah, it was fun to catch up with her after all this time," said Ash. "And how did it?" gooked up at the starts and said, "Perfectly." He then took his place by the tree he sleeps at. Lucario and Raichu doing the same, and they slowly fell asleep. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all are enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like, share and subscribe. Also don't forget to support author of this fanfic. So let's end this video here. Until then, see you in next video. If you are reading,